I was always ignored and undervalued by my parents. After my divorce, they exploited me financially and treated my son as a burden. I, 42, female, work as an emergency room physician at a large Boston hospital. I am a single mother with a 7-year-old boy named Jason. Today, I need to express something that has been bothering me for decades concerning my family dynamics, specifically my parents' behavior and its impact on my life. When I was 5 years old, my sister, Bethany, was born. Our parents told me that I was going to be a big sister and that it would be fantastic to have a lifelong buddy. They didn't mention that I had become invisible in our household. Every morning, Mom would prepare Bethany's breakfast to order 2 eggs sunny side up, toast cut diagonally, just how my princess likes it, while tossing me a box of cereal without looking at me. The contrasts were evident throughout our daily lives. In elementary school, Mom would spend hours assisting Bethany with her schoolwork, gently explaining each problem. When I sought assistance, the reaction was always the same. You're smart enough to figure it out for yourself. They'd come to all of Bethany's soccer games, cheering from the sidelines, but they always had previous engagements when I had science competitions. When I required braces, Dad moaned about the price for months. Every dentist appointment was accompanied by sighs and murmured remarks about expenses. 2 years later, when Bethany required braces as well, money became irrelevant. They even got her the beautiful, clear ones I had requested, but was rejected. They're an investment in her confidence, Mom told her book club pals, as if my confidence wasn't important. My academic achievements were regarded with indifference. Straight A's in advanced science classes elicited distracted nods. Yet Bethany's B+ in normal math prompted a joyful supper at her favorite downtown restaurant. During parent-teacher conferences, they hardly listened when my teachers commended my outstanding achievement in biology and chemistry, but smiled with pride when Bethany's teachers emphasized her engagement in class discussions. Birthday celebrations became a sharp reminder of our differing standing within the family. My parties were basic affairs, supermarket cake and a few pals in the backyard, if I was lucky enough to have one at all. Bethany's celebrations were full-fledged events, complete with bouncy houses, hired entertainers, custom-made cakes, and intricate theme decorations. One year, they even engaged a professional event planner. I once overheard Mom telling a friend, "Well, Bethany just appreciates these things more. Our older one is too practical." The remarks hurt, but I learned to ignore them. The toughest part was watching Bethany transform from a wonderful child to someone I scarcely recognized. In our childhood, we used to make blanket forts and make up funny stories about fantastic adventures. However, years of being treated as if she could do no wrong took its toll. By middle school, she had become exactly what you would anticipate. "Where's my blue sweater?" she'd ask, ransacking my closet without permission. "That's mine, Bethany. Mom bought it for my birthday." "Well, I need it for Jessica's party," she would explain. "Don't be selfish. Let your sister borrow it," Mom would often say. My items became communal property, but I was not allowed to touch anything Bethany owned. I learned to pick my battles, expect nothing, and seek validation elsewhere. School became my refuge. While Bethany was being praised for her role in the school play, she had 2 lines. I was quietly winning science fairs and devising my escape plan. I participated in every academic club conceivable, volunteered at the local hospital, and spent my summers conducting research internships. My guidance counselor became my best champion, assisting me in applying for scholarships and providing wonderful recommendations. I shivered with excitement when my acceptance letter to Harvard Medical School arrived, along with a full scholarship. Finally, I figured they'd have to recognize my accomplishments. I waited till dinner to ensure everyone was present. Instead of celebrating, Bethany dominated the evening with a dramatic reenactment of her 7th grade student council election campaign. "I got a full scholarship to Harvard Medical School," I said during a rare pause. "That is nice, honey," my mother responded. "Bethany, sweetie, tell us more about your campaign posters." Medical school became my haven. During those early years, I only returned home for important holidays, and even then, I counted the minutes until I could escape. Every visit was the same. Bethany's accomplishments were highlighted, while my dean list standings and prominent internship offers received little attention. I poured myself into my studies, succeeding at emergency medicine rotations and receiving wonderful referrals from renowned doctors. In my 3rd year, I began an emergency medicine rotation at Massachusetts General Hospital. That is where I met Robert. Robert was a medical device sales agent showcasing new trauma equipment to the department. Despite my normal, cautious approach to relationships, something just snapped between us. He was unlike anyone I'd dated before, genuinely engaged in my work, supportive of my career goals, and seemingly unconcerned by my ambitions. After graduation, we got married in a simple ceremony. I got a job in the ER at Mass General, and everything felt fantastic. When our son, Jason, was born, Robert appeared to be the adoring father I had hoped for. We bought a house in a good school area, established a lovely nursery, and I felt I'd finally found the family life I'd always desired. But something changed once Jason turned 1. Robert became aloof, started working late, and canceled our date nights. Initially, I ascribed it to the difficulties of new fatherhood and my rigorous job as an ER physician. I suggested couples counseling, date nights, and even a trip, but he always found an excuse. Deep down, I sensed something was wrong, but I wasn't expecting what happened next. The confession happened on a routine Tuesday evening. I was feeding Jason in his high chair when Robert strolled in, looking as if he hadn't slept in days. "I need to tell you something," he explained, his voice quivering. "I have met someone else. Her name is Kelly. She is a patient family member, and I am in love with her." My world collapsed in that moment, but years of emotional suppression had trained me to remain calm. The divorce was unexpectedly cordial. Robert went to Colorado with Kelly, but he insisted on paying substantial alimony and child support. "I may be a terrible husband," he observed at our most recent meeting, "but I won't be a terrible father." True to his word, he has stayed active in Jason's life through regular video conversations and holiday visits. Robert's family became an unexpected source of support after the divorce. Regardless of what happened to their son, Ken and Brenda remained dedicated grandparents to Jason, and their daughter, Sarah, became the aunt my sister never was. Every time we visited their house, Jason would light up and run right to the toy zone they had put up exclusively for him. Ken would get down on the floor and play with trucks, while Sarah always had a new game or craft project planned. My own parents' home was a very different scenario. I tried to see them on occasion, hoping they'd want to bond with their only grandchild, but their apathy was heartbreaking to witness. "Don't let him touch that vase," Mom would say, scarcely looking up from her magazine, "and make sure he doesn't run around too much. He'll scratch the hardwood floors." Jason would cling to my leg, sensing the frigid air. The contrast grew much more striking when Bethany showed up during our visits. "Here's my successful girl," Dad would beam as Bethany walked in, talking about her new job at a trading company. They'd completely disregard Jason's attempts to show them his latest drawing, instead focusing on Bethany's every word about workplace politics and client meetings. I'll provide updates shortly regarding recent occurrences that have made me reconsider everything about my relationship with my parents. It's still fresh, and I need time to comprehend everything. For the time being, my emphasis is on my son and the family members who have demonstrated the true meaning of unconditional love. Update number 1. Thank you all for your encouraging words. I've gathered my ideas and wanted to discuss how things changed following the divorce, especially my career and my parents' behavior. After Robert left, I put myself into my job at the ER. I began working on the most difficult cases, those that other doctors generally avoided. Last year, there was one exceptionally tough case, a patient with many traumas and a convoluted medical history. 3 previous hospitals had transferred him because they deemed him too risky. I spent 16 hours stabilizing him and collaborating with many doctors, and he came through. That instance piqued the department head's interest. "Dr. Carroll," he called me into his office one morning, "I've been following your performance. How do you feel about leading our new trauma response team?" It meant increased responsibility, longer hours, and a significant wage boost. I agreed without hesitation. The team's success rate, under my guidance, much exceeded expectations. We decreased critical response times by 30% and had the highest survival rate in the hospital's history. My research papers on emergency trauma protocols have been published in top medical publications. Then followed the promotion to senior attending physician, complete with a corner office and a salary that made my eyes wet. With my newfound financial stability, I purchased a lovely 3-bedroom apartment in an excellent school area. Jason was pleased to have his own room. "Mom, can I paint the walls blue, like the ocean?" he inquired, his eyes gleaming. "Of course, sweetheart," I said. "We can do whatever you want." That weekend, Ken and Sarah helped us paint, making it a family project. Brenda brought baked cookies, and we ended up getting more paint on ourselves than on the walls. This was the point at which my parents' relationship began to change. It started with casual questions about my new lifestyle. Mom began phoning more frequently, asking about Jason and arranging weekend trips. Initially, I was cautiously optimistic. Perhaps they'd want to be true grandparents to Jason. The initial visit appeared promising. Mom actually got down on the floor to play with Jason's train set, which I had never seen her do before. Dad even got him a new toy truck. But then the requests began to arrive, initially in tiny numbers. The refrigerator is making strange noises. The bathroom needs some repairs. Each time, they'd say how tight their finances were and how they couldn't possibly afford it alone. I agreed to help, remembering all of Bethany's dance classes and summer camps that they had paid for but had denied me. Each request was followed by brief intervals of focused attention on Jason. They'd invite us to dinner, inquire about his school, and express interest in his life, but it didn't last long. Meanwhile, Jason was excelling at his new school. His teacher informed me he's exceptionally bright, particularly in science, just like his mom. Sarah was beaming at the parent-teacher conference. She and I went together. My folks, however, were too preoccupied that day. Every Wednesday, Sarah gets him up from school and takes him to science club, which she began doing after observing his interest in my medical books. Ken and Brenda have been constants in our lives. They come up every Sunday for family dinner, and Brenda has been teaching Jason how to bake. Last week, they baked chocolate chip cookies together, and Jason boldly said, "I want to be both a doctor and a baker when I grow up." My parents' financial needs escalated to include a new water heater in-house renovations. Then came the biggest one. "Sweetie," Dad called one Sunday, "your mother and I have been considering acquiring a new car. The payments would be costly for us, but with your new position." They named a character that would have made me choke a year ago. Now, it was manageable. What followed, however, really struck a chord with me. "We'd pay you back, of course," Mom promised me, but we both knew they wouldn't. "We just need something dependable to drive Bethany to her job interview. She's having a difficult time in that trading company. You're aware of how intense office politics can be." I agreed to help, primarily out of habit. During our usual coffee meetup, Sarah realized that something was amiss. "You seem tense," she commented, swirling her coffee. "Have your parents asked for money again?" I told her about the car, and she scowled. "You understand you don't owe them anything, right? Just because you're successful now doesn't mean you have to support their lifestyle." I dismissed her worries, assuring myself I had more than enough money. Wasn't it worth it if buying my parents' attention allowed Jason to have grandparents in his life? But something felt wrong, deep down. The way they'd casually discussed breaking off contact when I hesitated on a payment, and how their interest in Jason appeared to be directly linked to my financial contributions. Last week, everything came to a head in unexpected ways. But that's another post I'll write when I'm ready. I have to leave now for my shift at the hospital, but I wanted to thank everyone for their kind words. Reading your stories about comparable events has made me feel less alone in this situation. Update 2. The recent occurrences I stated have dramatically altered my outlook on my relationship with my parents. I need to explain what happened during my emergency hospitalization last week. I was in the middle of a presentation at our weekly trauma team conference when the first wave of pain struck, sharp and unexpected, causing me to double over in mid-sentence. Our senior surgeon, Dr. Simon, identified the symptoms immediately. Classic appendicitis presentation. "We need to get you into surgery." The irony of an ER doctor being an emergency patient did not escape my notice. My mind was racing with thoughts of Jason as I prepared for surgery. He needed to get picked up from his robotics club in 2 hours. Ken and Brenda were on a cruise, while Sarah attended a conference in Chicago. Under normal circumstances, I would never approach my parents, but I was out of options. I called Mom when the nurses started my 4. It took 4 rings before she responded. "Mom, I'm in the hospital. My appendix needs to come out immediately. Could you please pick up Jason from school? I'll need someone to watch him for a couple of days while I recover." The silence that ensued was deafening. "Oh, honey, that's not possible," she exclaimed, her voice abruptly icy. "Your father and I are getting ready for Bethany's promotion party. She finally made junior executive at her company, and we're hosting 50 people at Bistro tonight." "Mom, please," I cried, attempting to maintain my voice despite the mounting anguish. Jason needs to be picked up in less than 2 hours. I don't have anyone else right now. The nurse adjusted my fore and gave me a compassionate look. Well, that's not really our problem, she said harshly. We're in a hurry to get to the restaurant. We can't be babysitting right now. Besides, you know how Jason is. Always being so noisy and touching everything. It's quite a burden, really. I couldn't believe what I heard. A burden? He's your grandson. After everything I've done for you. I've been paying your car loan for the past year, every time you needed money. She interrupted me with a laugh that froze me to the bone. Oh, we won't be needing your handouts anymore. Bethany's new position comes with an excellent salary. She's going to help us instead of you. The call went dead. I lay in the hospital bed, phone still clamped to my ear, tears mixed with cold sweat on my cheeks. The nurse softly touched my arm. Dr. Carroll, do you have someone else we can call? I called Sarah with shaky hands. She picked up on the first ring. Before I could finish explaining, she was already in action. Text me the school details. What time does he need to be picked up? Don't worry about anything else. I've already booked a trip back. We'll have a sleepover with my dog, Max. Won't we? Jason enjoys playing with him anyway. But your conference, I started protesting. Stop it, Sarah said forcefully. Jason is my nephew. The conference can wait. Focus on getting better, okay? Jason will be okay with me, I promise. The next thing I remembered was waking up in recovery, disoriented from anesthesia. My first conscious thought was about Jason, but there was already a text message from Sarah waiting. Jason is having a blast. We made pizza and created a blanket fort. Max is on guard. Don't worry about anything other than getting better. She uploaded images over the next 2 days, showing Jason helping her bake cookies, falling asleep in a mound of plush animals, and building Lego hospitals, just like where mommy works. When I was discharged, Sarah took me home, having already stocked my fridge, scheduled a cleaning service, and set up a cozy recuperation area in my living room. When I went in, Jason ran to embrace me, stopping just short when he realized I was ouchy. Aunt Sarah let me help make breakfast every morning, and Max slept in my blanket fort, he stated triumphantly. The next day, while recovering from surgery, I came upon dozens of images from Bethany's promotion celebration, which had been posted on the same day I had surgery. Mom and Dad were beaming triumphantly beside Bethany in her expensive dress, with champagne toasts and an exquisite cake that must have cost a lot. Everyone was laughing and partying while I lay in a hospital bed, their grandson disregarded as a burden. That night, after Jason had fallen asleep, I sat down at my computer. First, I canceled the automatic monthly transfer to my parents' account for their car payment, and then I blocked them on all social media platforms. Looking at the framed photo on my desk of Jason and me in the park, laughing together while Max chased bubbles around us, I felt something change inside me. I've been trying to buy my parents' love with money and tolerance for years, but real family, real love. Is Sarah flying back from her conference without hesitation? Ken and Brenda FaceTiming Jason every night while on their cruise, allowing him to show them his latest drawings, and Max, the dog, guarding my son's blanket fort while I'm in the hospital. I need some time to comprehend everything, but I'll post another update soon. For the time being, I'm focusing on recovery and being present for my son. The hospital granted me 2 weeks of medical leave, and Sarah insists on staying with us until I'm back on my feet. Yesterday, she assisted Jason in decorating my recovery room with his science fair paintings to make it pretty like the hospital. He stated, honestly, but better because it has my art. The realization that my son has never experienced the kind of conditional love I grew up with makes all of this worthwhile. He understands that he is loved for who he is, rather than what he can contribute, and that may be the greatest gift of all. I'll post update 3 shortly on what happened when my parents discovered their monthly car payments had stopped, but for now, I need to relax and enjoy this tranquil time with my true family. Update 3, first and foremost, I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone for their encouraging comments and messages, which helped me persevere through what followed. As many of you predicted, my parents did not take the canceled car payments well. It began with a flood of voicemails and texts, each more desperate than the last. I blocked their numbers, but they started using different phones. The messages ranged from guilt-tripping, "How could you do this to your own parents?" to angry threats, "We'll tell everyone you're an ungrateful daughter," to tearful, "Please, we're going to lose the car because of you." There was no mention of Jason in any of the messages, and there was no apology for how they treated us during my hospitalization. Everything was about them, their demands, their car, their feelings, their social status. Then came the flying monkeys, and distant relatives and family acquaintances began phoning to tell me how I had broken my parents' hearts. "They're getting older," my Aunt Susan admonished. "It's your duty as their daughter to help them." I wanted to question where their sense of duty was when their grandson needed them, but instead, I simply blocked those numbers. Last Sunday, I was sitting in our backyard, watching Jason and Max play fetch while Sarah grilled burgers for lunch, when a car I didn't know drove into my driveway. Mom stepped out with her best church social smile. "Carol, sweetheart," she shouted out, using my first name, which she only does when she wants something. "How are you? We've been worried since you stopped returning our calls." I stayed seated, keeping my voice quiet for Jason's sake. "What do you want, Mom?" She sat on the edge of a patio chair and smoothed her fashionable skirt. "Well, since you asked, your father and I are in a bit of a predicament with the vehicle payments," she began, letting out that theatrical sigh I knew so well. "You see, we assumed Bethany would help us with her new position and all, but when we asked her, she stopped for dramatic effect. She just refused. Can you believe it? She said she had her own expenses to worry about, after everything we'd done for her." The irony was nearly too much, and I tried not to chuckle. "Oh," she said, her voice lowering, "we were hoping you could start helping with the payments again, just until we figure something else out." When I didn't react right away, she said, "We could lose the car, you know, and then how would we go to all our social engagements?" This time, I couldn't contain my laughter. It spilled forth, sharp and bitter. "Mom, this isn't funny," she said. "We could lose the car." "Do you know what is funny?" I said. 3 months ago, while I was being rushed into emergency surgery, you labeled my son, your grandson, a burden. You couldn't be bothered to assist us since you were too busy celebrating Bethany's advancement. The same Bethany who now refuses to give you a cent. "We were just busy that day. You know how these things are," she stuttered. "No, Mom, I know precisely what it was. I was helpful when I paid your debts. Jason and I became problematic once you believed Bethany could replace me as your personal ATM. That is not fair. We have always." "Always what?" I cut her off. "Have you always favored Bethany? Always treated me as if I were second best? Always took my assistance for granted until something better came along?" "Carol, please," her voice broke. "You called my financial assistance handouts, remember, right before you hung up on me while I was in the hospital. So guess what? The handouts are done. I'm done attempting to purchase your love. I've had enough of you treating my baby as if he's less important than Bethany's luxury purses. I'm just finished." "But the car." I stood up, fully free of the burden I'd carried my entire life. "This is no longer my problem. Goodbye, Mom." Jason dashed over, Max bouncing beside him. "Mommy, see what I can do," he screamed, throwing the ball in a beautiful arc, which Max caught midway. Mom opened her lips to say something, but I interrupted her with a look, and she walked back to her borrowed car and drove away. That evening, we had our customary Sunday family meal with Ken, Brenda, and Sarah. Jason proudly demonstrated his new ball-throwing technique as Ken barbecued and Brenda set up the patio table. As I saw my son laugh as Sarah taught him how to make s'mores, I felt at ease about my decision. Last week, Jason brought home a family tree project from school, and he had put Ken and Brenda right next to me, with Sarah and Max nearby. Robert had his own small branch, and we've maintained things friendly there with regular video chats and holiday visits. However, neither my parents nor Bethany appeared on the page. "Is everything okay, Mommy?" he asked, showing me his work. Miss Johnson said family trees generally include more members, but I told her these are all we need. I posted his drawing on the fridge, next to a photo from his previous birthday party, with all of us gathered around the cake and real grins on everyone's faces. "It's perfect, baby," I told him, "totally perfect. Sometimes, the family you're born into isn't the family you're supposed to have, and you have to let go of the people who should have loved you in order to make place for the ones who do." It took me 42 years to grasp that lesson, but witnessing Jason grow up in an environment filled with genuine, unconditional love was well worth the wait. Thank you to everyone who shared their tales in the comments. You gave me the strength I needed to break free from the cycle of conditional love and manipulation. Jason and I are doing well because we are surrounded by folks who demonstrate what true family means every day. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.